Hi there. I'm going to have a global review of cases around maternity issues, including and starting with the first one in the UK of Lucy Letby, a neonatal nurse serving many lifetimes in jail for supposedly murder, when none of the baby's causes of death by the pathologist, by the coroners, were determined to be unlawful or a killing. And so not only were the babies not harmed by her, none of the causes of death are consistent with anybody harming them. That is, apart from medical negligence and the hospital sanitation, lack of staff, lack of resources. All of this is well documented to have contributed to, in some cases, preventable deaths to those babies. Other babies would also have had preventable injuries and unnecessary treatments because of the medical negligence. That is alleged because it's not proven either in a civil or criminal court, but it could be. The people who made the allegations against Lucy Letby and started the ball rolling were those who lost the employment personal grievance case that she took against them, which is very unusual in a hospital to have, I think it was 4 or 5 or even 6 doctors have to apologise in writing to Lucy Letby. So her case is full of holes. The medical expert witness for the government prosecution, and it is the government because they're the ones failing to really get a grip of this case, that expert medical witness was not a true expert medical witness, was retired, out of date, loads of reasons, and even they've disagreed with their own determinations, their own opinions many times. A lot of it was fanciful, imaginative thinking. Well, she could have done this, she could have done that. And then the judge went ahead to say to the jury, you don't have to know for sure that she did or how she did kill them, just that she did it. Did what? She injected air into a blood vessel? How? And how come nobody saw it? There's no evidence. So that's a terrible case. It's probably the worst one relating to maternity. In Brazil, Dr. Ricardo Jones also has a murder conviction. And again, this is a case where one baby died from congenital abnormalities over 15 years ago. He and his wife attended the home birth and they transferred the baby in who was having breathing difficulties because of congenital pneumonia. So that case has gone around in circles. It was decided on a majority of 4-3. Most countries would need a far greater majority. And it's going to the Court of Appeal for South America and Central America. They have their own, a bit like the European Court of Human Rights. And that brings me on to the ICC. The International Criminal Court can actually investigate the judge. So if the judge acted improperly, and they appear to have been very persuaded by old-fashioned, out-of-date, unevidenced, illogical medical arguments that birth is only safe in hospital. And yet here I am, born at home as a surprise twin. And many people can be born at home. It should just simply be a choice. And we've moved from 95% home birth to 95% or more hospital birth. Why? What's the evidence? And how much harm is happening in hospitals? Well, we have various investigations and reports in many countries. The UK is a bit more transparent and honest than some. It's not perfect. It certainly has problems. It used to have a more autonomous midwifery profession, and now it still does have some autonomy, and I hope it's resurging. But the reports even in the UK showing that one hospital, Nottingham, had 2,000 preventable deaths of newborn babies over about 10-year period, I think. And other reports show lots of failings, and we repeat the failings. And we repeat the reports, and the investigations simply get repeated. So why don't we take action? Some of the action is down to consumers, some is practitioners, some are regulators. The ultimate thing, again, whether it's Ministry of Justice or Ministry of Health, is the government. Government will only do what we ask or tell them to do, so that means going through our members of parliament and get them to look at certain cases like the Lucy Letby case. That's about everybody's justice. We could all have a wrongful conviction tomorrow if we don't stand up for one today. Other cases in the Czech Republic, there was 3 or 4 resuscitations of babies. It happens in hospitals. This is a particularly good hospital that has great leadership, that has implemented respectful maternity care really giving women choice to be off the bed, to be mobile, to be physiological while they're birthing, instead of on their backs, tied to a monitor and restricted in their movements. So definitely an improvement there, and it's attracted criticism because it's improved. It also attracted a lot more consumers. It trebled its size of birth from 200 to 300 births per year. That might not sound a lot when you look at some hospitals of 10,000 births a year. Generally, the more births, the more people, the more potential problems there are. And these are often hidden, swept under the carpet. So a small hospital has a spotlight on it, and they said, oh, you had 4 resuscitations, what went wrong? Well, sometimes it just is. It can be like this with birth. You can have quite innocent problems that you don't know about during a labour that present only at the birth. You couldn't predict it and prevent it, you just have to deal with the problem. So they dealt with the resuscitation by the paediatric staff, who have not been suspended, but 3 of the maternity staff have been suspended. The lead doctor, who was not there on that day, another obstetrician gynecologist, and 1 midwife. So that raises the question, they didn't do the resuscitation. Why were the paediatric staff who did the resuscitation not suspended? Why was anyone suspended? And writing to the director there's no response, no engagement. They have a very autocratic, old-fashioned style of ex-communism of, we are in charge, we do what we like, we're not accountable, we don't even have to be logical. We can just say things are scary or dangerous and you must take this tablet, take this surgery, and do what we tell you. So those countries like the Balkans, some of the Baltic and East European countries are very aggressively like that. Not even always aggressive, just blinded, that they genuinely think that doctor knows best, and they don't respect that women know themselves and can make their own choices for their babies and their bodies. A lot of European countries are also a little bit medieval, some of them with their religious beliefs of saying you must do this, you must do that. Also Arabic countries, Muslim countries I've been working and looking at and researching are quite dictatorial, with 50% caesarean. So Czech Republic, 25% or so, 27% caesarean, looks really good on paper. If we investigated all the large hospitals, we would find preventable deaths and serious injuries that are not recorded, and we may find other statistics that are of concern. But these investigations are not done in the less transparent countries. What can we do? Well, we can take countries and people to court. So if somebody's dissatisfied with their care, they can challenge the caregiver, they can challenge the hospital, the provider. And in this case, in the Czech Republic, there's an ownership by, I think, a private company. It may even be state funded, but it's probably private and probably needs to be taken to court as a defendant to stand up for itself and say why it's doing what it's doing and why it's not doing the good things that would be helpful and necessary. Looking at evidence-based research, what the customers really need and want. Jumping countries and continents into Australia, there are the cases of manslaughter. Also in Austria, the case of manslaughter is still awaiting the appeal verdict, which should have happened a few months ago, and they're sitting on it. The judiciary in Austria is very autocratic, doesn't like to be challenged or questioned, and in this case we can see quite plainly they could and should have reported a few months ago, and they again are not engaging. That itself is causing more preventable harm, as in deaths and serious injuries to mothers and babies across Austria, more unassisted free births. And that's the knee-jerk reaction in many countries. So jumping back to Australia, where we've got these manslaughter cases, staff in all countries, including Brazil, the UK, are terrified. Should they go to a home birth? Will they end up going to jail? What's going to happen to them? And what about the families? If they have a staff that are employed by hospitals coming out to them, are they protected? If they have independent practitioners, are they threatened? So what's the liability? Many women are now choosing unassisted birth or free birth, some might say primal birth, to birth alone at home. Is it a choice? It's forced on some because there's no one to come to their birth that they can have a good relationship with. This word relationship is key. Quite often the medical establishments say, well, a mother and baby, even after the birth, can come to hospital, be checked over. Now, they want a midwife in their home. Why? Because of the relationship. And that's an intangible thing that prevents problems. It helps with breastfeeding, with baby problems, prevents depression, psychosis. It's well established that benefits of this fantastic relationships that midwives build with their clients. And some medical practitioners also build it, but they're mostly in a rush, they're task orientated, and they're focused on transactions. Is there a problem? If not, do nothing. If there is, treat it aggressively with drugs or surgery quite often. That's not what people need or want. They need the relationship, they need choices. So in this very brief, quick roundup of countries, we've got Australia, Austria, Czech Republic, the UK, Brazil. Also in Canada there's a case, how much responsibility does a birth attendant, whether they're a doula, retired or ex-midwife, are they really responsible for the birth? Are the parents responsible for the birth? What are the choices we are making, and what are the choices we would like to have? That's what we need to stand up for. So I encourage people writing to members of parliament, taking draft legal actions that you don't have to always file in the courts. Plus there's various books, including now I have written a few books myself, one on Lucy Letby case that's currently being updated with all the new evidence, information, the failings of the public inquiry, for example, and the fact that the CPS now would not investigate any new allegations put forward by the police, which are very similar to the previous ones. So what's the difference? Why not now? Why did they before? It's different leadership and different kind of coercion from the police and funding, and also the fact they can see very plainly there's lots of evidence to support her innocence. So if they tried to have any kind of trial against her, it would very much backfire. So all this is covered in the book on Lucy Letby and Global Birth Legal Casebook, which goes along with the Protect Your Practice and Keep Your Clients Safe, along with keeping midwives safe and law mediation for nurses, doctors, midwives. And I have my organisations doing lots of voluntary charity work, human rights action in childbirth. So feel free to join and share ideas.